Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rifts. They're back with the Kha'Zix complete guide. So oh boy, I got a treat for you all today. As you guys know, I always play AD carry. I rarely play other roles. So generally, you wouldn't see complete guides for other roles other than AD carry. I have done some previously, like the Orianna mid or the Janna support one, but I rarely play other roles in rank. So as I normally mention, or I don't normally mention this, but as I've mentioned a couple of times before, for complete guides, I want to make sure I know how to play the character properly, and I will use ranked gameplay, whereas for some commentary guides, I will actually use gameplay from normals, just so that I have more variety in my content, so that not all my content is all covering AD carries. Speaking of which, I actually do have a existing Kha'Zix commentary guide, so I will link that up in the cards if you guys want to check that one out. So I will say that I am definitely not the best Kha'Zix player or the best jungle player. I actually have jungle as my fourth choice in the role selection, and somehow I managed to get my fourth choice in ranked, which is the first time that it ever happened to me. My fifth choice is support, but of course, as you guys know, I dual queue with a support main, so I have basically no chance of getting support. So essentially, I kind of got my last choice. But that's beside the point. Today we're gonna cover Kha'Zix, who I do believe is the best solo queue jungler at the moment. So without further ado, let's jump into his skills, abilities, and leveling order, as well as his evolution order, because we do have to cover that for Kha'Zix. Alright, so first up, we're going to talk about his leveling order as well as his evolution order. So, first up, we're going to disable the... Oh, we're not going to add an enemy dummy, but rather we're going to disable the enemy bot. So, first up, of course, at level 1, we'll take Q, just for the faster clear. Level 2 will take a W. And now actually at level 3 you have your first option. If you're actually planning to fight, it's better to go for an E. However, if you're not planning to fight, it's actually better to go for a second point in Q. So at level 3 it's either another point in Q or a point in E. So if you are going to contest the skull, it's better to take a point in E. But if you're just going to full clear, just take a point in Q for a faster clear. Then you max Q and take ultimate when available. And at level 5, when you get your ultimate, you get your first evolution. Now your first evolution will always be the Q evolution, because the Q evolution gives you the most for what you want. For the first evolution point, I should say, it gives you the most benefit, is the word I'm trying to find, because it gives you more damage on your Q, as well as a reduced cooldown on your Q. So after that, you proceed on to max Q. After you max Q, you proceed on to go for W. Actually, I have no idea how I managed to get so many levels. Was that from killing that enemy dummy? I guess it was. So after you proceed on to max W, of course taking ultimate when available. So basically, whenever you get a point in your ultimate at levels 5, 9, and 13, you'll get an evolution. Now we get onto our second evolution, which is actually a little bit complicated of a choice, because you actually have a choice between evolving your W and evolving your E. Generally, as a Kha'Zix, you won't evolve your ultimate at all unless you have a playstyle which you like to evolve your ultimate, but most general Kha'Zix playstyles doesn't involve evolving ultimate. So now, if you are against a team that likes to group and team fight a lot, evolving your W will be more beneficial, because you can just stay at range and poke with your W with your triple missiles. Whereas if you are against a team that doesn't really group up and are very squishy, very easy to get picks on, it's better to just evolve your E. So let's say for example, I evolve my E. As I continue leveling up, I will still continue to max my W, because that is the most worth to max. I will then, of course, take E, because that's the only option I have left. After leveling my ultimate, I have a choice again. Now, if I took E, I will take W now, and if I took W, I'll take E now. So basically, all my basic abilities should be, evolved by level 13, whereas I wouldn't really evolve my ultimate. So, yeah. So now we're going to actually hit over to our favorite spot in the river to actually cover what all of his abilities does. So actually, I probably should... I don't know how I can actually reset my level. probably somewhere. There we go. Reset level. So I'm first gonna cover what his basic abilities do. Then I will cover what the evolved versions do. So first up, of course, gotta place the enemy dummy. So first up, first thing you guys need to know is Kha'Zix passive. So basically, his passive is he has this glowing claws. So whenever he goes out of vision, his passive refreshes. So it enhances his next auto attack to deal bonus magic damage as well as a 25% slow for 2 seconds. So it is refreshed when the enemy loses sight of Kha'Zix. So for example, over here, I'm going to auto attack the enemy. Boom. I consume the slow and extra magic damage. My claws are no longer glowing. When I move out of enemy vision, you guys can see my claws are glowing again. And when I go over, boom, extra damage and the slow, and I have no more passive. So I can go out of vision, I get my passive refreshed, and bam a lamb, there we go, the passive again. Now if you guys notice, there is this purple area around the enemy. And there's also this purple thing around the skull crab. Now what that means is Kha'Zix's entire kit revolves, or I don't say his entire kit, his Q revolves around isolation. So if you guys take a look at his Q description, it will do 60 damage with AD scaling, but that's not the important part. If the target is isolated, the damage is increased by 110%. So that means the damage is over doubled when the target is isolated. So you want to always use your Q when the target is isolated. And as you guys can see, when it is evolved, you gain 50 range and 45% of the cooldown is refunded against isolated target. So that is why you evolve this first, because the extra range and the cooldown refund is huge in terms of maximizing your DPS. So basically, something else you need to note is that jungle monsters do not count as other units when counting isolation. Structures and minions do count, but if jungle monsters are nearby, like this guy walks into the isolation range like that, it doesn't count at all. So here, boom, isolated, huge amount of damage. Now if I put another enemy dummy around over here, they are no longer isolated, but if there's another guy far away, that guy is isolated. So yeah, so his W is a skill shot. It's simply just a skill shot, boom, just like that. Doesn't really do too much damage. It's mostly used for utility. Like when you evolve it, it gets a slow and it goes into a triple missile, which we'll cover later on. And when you are nearby, it does actually give you a heal. So like that, when you are in the explosion radius, boom, you actually get a heal. If you guys can see, his E is just a dash, like that. It's a, you know, kind of point and click, so you can dash over walls really easily. Like that. And now his ultimate, his ultimate is actually really really simple of an ultimate. All it does is, oh, I'm leveling out the enemy. All it does is it gives him an invisibility. So basically like that, you have a free invisibility, so you can do whatever you want. Boom, then you invis like that for a second, and you can reactivate it again for a second invis. Now there are a few ways to use your ultimate. Now the first way obviously is to avoid damage in a fight. So you get off all your DPS, you hit your ultimate, and you wait for your cooldowns again, and then you re-engage. The second way to use it is actually when coming in for a gank. Like for example, if I'm here, I'm ganking mid lane, I can actually simply just press my invis and walk up to mid lane. I can get to the middle of the lane without the enemy actually spotting me. So that is something to take note. There is no indicator for the enemy when you're walking up, because this is his ultimate, and it's sort of like a free... it's not like an Evelyn invis or an Akshan invis where it's for an extended duration. It's only for a second, so the enemy doesn't actually get any indicator when you're coming in. So that is another very good use to get up close and personal to the enemy with your invis. As a matter of fact, you can actually also combo it with your E. So you can actually just invis, and you actually just jump straight on them. Although it does break the invis, so that doesn't really make sense. So you can use it for escaping, you can use it for like, you know, when you can also use it for buying time for your cooldowns, and you can also simply just use it to escape. So as you guys know, when you're invis, people can't target you with your auto attack. So assuming these two are AD carries that they're chasing me, I can just invis and I run away so that they cannot actually you know, get off any basic attacks on me. So that's another way you can do it. Now we're going to talk about the evolved ability. So we talked about the evolved Q. Now we're actually going to talk about the evolved W. We're actually going to max level ourselves. So the evolved W is basically you gain a triple spike. You can only hit one spike onto one enemy, so even if you're standing right next to this guy, you can only shoot one into one enemy. You can't hit all three onto a single target. But what it really is for the slow. So if you hit multiple enemies, or even if you hit one enemy, it will slow. As you guys can see, it will give a slow. So actually it doesn't even show. Yeah, it does give a slow. And evolving, it is a triple missile. And for the E, so the E current range is until here. When you evolve your E, you will get an increased range. Like that. Actually, yep, like that. So previously it was up till like here. Now it's up till here. So you get an increased range. And when you get a kill, it does reset your E. So I don't really have anybody to kill right now. But when you kill an enemy, it does reset your E. So that's something to take note. When you evolve your ult, I'm not going to show you in this video because I'm going to have to reset my level again. When you evolve your ult, instead of 2 charges of your ult, you actually get 3 charges of your ult, which is, in my opinion, not the most useful. So I don't actually bother evolving my ultimate. So yeah. So now without further ado, we're actually going to jump into the build for Kha'Zix. Now there is actually multiple variations for the Kha'Zix build, which we will cover, as well as the runes as well. So here we have my personal Kha'Zix build. So first up, there's no argument about the first item. You always want to start with the Dustblade of Drakthar, because obviously with Kha'Zix you build lethality, you're going for single target damage, and you're mainly meant to take out squishy targets. So Kha'Zix is meant to target the enemy mage, enemy marksman, you know, the enemy backline basically. You're not meant to target like the enemy Garen, like no one cares about that. You're an assassin meant to target the enemy backline. So with that, this is the best lethality item. It gives you the most damage, the most flat armor penetration, as well as the general most damage because of its passive, where it gives a bonus physical damage as well as a slow when you're unseen. So Dustblade is always your first item. And your second item is always Serelda's Grudge. So Serelda's Grudge, the reason you build this is for the slow. So it's not so much for the ability haste or the attack damage. Of course, the percentage armor penetration is something that you do want, but it's because when you are spamming your Q on an isolated target, they are going to get slowed, and you're going to get your Q cooldown fast when you have it evolved, and you can spam your Q and spam your Q, and they cannot run away at all. So you always want to go for Serelda's Grudge as your second item. Now for your boots, you generally want to go for Ionian Boots of Lucidity just to get your cooldowns back faster. You generally don't really want to go for anything else. And for your boot enchants, actually I go for Stasis 90% of games. And I go for like Proto Belt on some other games where I need extra mobility, but generally 90% of games I go for Stasis. Just so that when you jump in, get off your full combo. Sometimes you just need to stasis instead of stealthing because there are just too many enemies around. So if you stealth, you're still going to get hit by AoE and whatnot. So it's better to just stasis instead of stealth. Now for the next item, you will go for another lethality item. Normally you go for Yomu's Ghostblade just to get around the map faster, and it's in general just a good lethality item. Now of course your alternative option over here is actually going for a Umbral Glaive. Now, Umbral Glaive on Kha'Zix isn't really that bad because being the jungler, you actually traverse the map a lot, so you can actually get off a good amount of ward vision control, I should say. So the ward canceling, the ward removal might actually help Kha'Zix quite a bit. And alternatively, you can even go for all 3 lethality items with the Serelda's Grudge. So you can actually go for the Dustblade, Yomu's, and then after that into the Umbral Glaive. So you can actually go for all 3 flat penetration items as well. Now when do you do this? Honestly, quite rarely, because generally your last 2 items is kind of needed. So I generally don't go for it. But if you're into a full squishy team with like no tanks at all, so if there are no tanks in enemy team. For example, if there are fighters on enemy team, there are not tanks. So if you have, let's say, an Irelia in the top lane, Evelynn in the jungle, and Akali in the mid lane, and in the bot lane you have like a Draven and a Seraphine, there are no tanks in the team. There is Irelia, who is a fighter, and Akali is an assassin. You know, there are no tanks on the enemy team at all. You can actually go for triple lethality item because it's gonna be very worth it, because out of all these champions, the only one that maybe will build some kind of defense against you is Irelia as her last or second last item, like maybe her GA or some other kind of armor item, maybe armor boots. But Generally, in this team, no one is going to be building armor against you, so this is when it's very worth to get triple lethality item, but other than that, it really isn't worth it at all, and you are better off going for these items as long as there are like as long as there's like one tank in the team who's going to be building armor against you. Or actually, I shouldn't really say that, because sometimes you wouldn't target one, like let's say one Alistar anyway, so sometimes it is still worth it, but I'm just not too comfortable with that because I kind of want the Guardian Angel and the Kha'Zix Gauge for survivability. So, getting into that, my second last item is always going to be Guardian Angel. After I go for my 3 core items of these three, I go for the Guardian Angel, of course, AD, Armor, and the Revive passive. So, you know, with Stasis and Guardian Angel, you actually can revive quite a bit. And then for my last item, I actually like to go for Kha'Zix Gauge. Now, you will see a lot of top Kha'Zix players actually go for Kha'Zix Gauge. Now, first up, you get the increased basic attack damage. Of course, as a Kha'Zix, you don't only just have all your damage from your Q. Between queuing, you also auto attack, like to proc your slow passive and everything. So you do actually auto attack as well. So that actually will help you as well. And you also get the lifeline passive, which will help your survivability a lot when you're jumping in and getting bursted. You get more health, you get the tenacity. So it is actually really useful. Now, a couple of other items that you can consider going for, as I've mentioned previously, of course, is the Umbral Glaive. If I can actually find it, the Umbral Glaive. Now, another couple items you can actually consider is actually the Black Cleaver. Now, there is a sort of more fighter style kind of Kha'Zix instead of an assassin kind of style Kha'Zix. Now, this is more assassin than fighter, but there are builds where you don't actually go for lethality. You actually go for Black Cleaver, Kha'Zix Gauge, those kind of items. So you're more of a fighter style Kha'Zix. I don't really like it, but it is out there. Even you go for assassin style Kha'Zix, you can actually go for the Black Cleaver, like somewhere over here. So what the Black Cleaver does is, of course, it gives you more survivability with your more max health, you know. But other than that, it also gives you ability haste, which of course is what Kha'Zix loves, because you can get your Q up more often to do more damage. And you also get the armor shred when you know, auto attack an enemy multiple times, so even more armor shred on top of all the armor shred you already have. It's, you know, a lot of armor shred, and it's going to be very beneficial for Kha'Zix, so that is something else to consider. Other than that, you also have Maw of Malmorius. If you need some magic defense, feel like you need magic defense, you can also go for a Maw. Other than that, you can also go for a Death's Dance, but I don't really like all these options. I'm just pointing it out that they are options. I personally just go for, you know, the build that I just showed you guys. That's what I personally go for. And now for the runes for Kha'Zix, there is actually some point of contention here. Now for the Keystone rune, I personally like to take Electrocute, because I like to just burst down that single target, get as much damage as possible onto that one target, assassinate the guy, possibly get a reset of my E if I have it evolved already, move on to the next guy. But some people actually like to take Conqueror on Kha'Zix. Now the reason for this is, Kha'Zix, despite being an assassin, actually stays in the fight for quite a long period of time. So you jump in, auto attack, Q, that's like already 2 stacks of Conqueror. You probably will Q another like 2 to 3 times. So you can probably fully stack your Conqueror relatively fast. So you jump in, auto Q, that's already like 4 stacks of Conqueror, and by the time you get off your 3rd Q, the enemy is either already dead before that, or he's gonna die now. And if you move on to the next enemy, you're gonna have a fully stacked Conqueror. So some people actually like taking Conqueror on Kha'Zix, and I can see why, and I can understand why. Just that I personally don't do it. I just personally like Electrocute, so you can choose which Keystone you prefer and take that one. Now for the next one, you always really go for Brutal. Now this is simply because you need the 7 AD and 2% armor pen just for the faster jungle clear. You just simply need that, and nothing else really is that beneficial. Triumph actually is a very interesting option because Kha'Zix gets a lot of resets and jumps around a lot, so Triumph actually is not a very bad option on Kha'Zix, but I think Brutal is just more important in general. For the Resolve rune, I generally take Hunter Titan because Kha'Zix is jumping in, so sometimes you get CC'd, so the tenacity is very, very helpful when it comes to that. Other than that, a good option is Bone Plating. I like Bone Plating on a lot of junglers because you don't actually suffer from the fact that you get poked and your Bone Plating gets proc very easy because you're in the jungle, there's no one really there to poke you, so Bone Plating is a relatively good option as well, because when you go in, you want to have the Bone Plating just to take less damage. And lastly, for the last rune, I personally like to take Mastermind. Now, the reason for this is Kha'Zix actually clears, Kha'Zix actually destroys dragons, barons, and, you know, all the epic monsters very, very quickly, and with this he destroys them even quicker because they are always isolated. So he's gonna be bursting them down really, really quickly, so it's really, really helpful. So I like taking Mastermind on Kha'Zix. If you don't like that, you can also go for Hunter Genius for even more ability haste, or even Pathfinder for more movement speed in the jungle, like just to traverse the map faster. So yeah, for your spells, it's very obvious. It's gonna be Smite and Flash. You know, nothing really too much to discuss here. And with all of that out of the way, we can finally move on to the Kha'Zix gameplay. Alrighty, so here we have the Kha'Zix ranked gameplay that I just completed not too long ago. So now, as usual, as at this juncture of the video, as I always say, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video. It really helps me out. So now, straight off at level 1, we're doing the so-called, I wouldn't really call it a trick, but the thing where you ward your buff and then you back and change to Sweeper. Now, it is an enemy Wukong, so I'm not expecting him to invade me or whatnot, but you know, you don't actually need your Sweeper until you go for your first gank, where it normally will be up by the time you clear, so it doesn't really matter anyway. It's basically just a free ward on the red, so why not? And I actually got my bot lane slash, it is top lane in this video, but in this match I should say, but I got my bot lane to actually leash me. Or rather, I shouldn't say I got them. They actually were nice enough to come over and leash me, which helps me a lot. So here, I have mentioned this in the commentary guide as well, but you always want to target the small wolves first to isolate the big one, and after you isolate the big one like this, you can clear faster by just spamming your spells on it. So you do want to do that. Now, I will say that in this game, I have had a very, very rough early game. I played the early game as Kha'Zix pretty poorly, so we can't actually learn from that in this video, but I do play the mid and late game very, very well on Kha'Zix, so you guys will get to see that in action as well. So here, the bot lane is going ham already. So here, obviously, I'm nowhere in the area. I'm just going to proceed on with my clear. Now here, I actually made my first huge mistake here. I actually thought that Wukong would start blue and go to red. I thought that he'll be on the other side of the map, so I tracked him wrong, and I actually leveled up my Q instead of my E. I always say if you're going for the skull fight, you want to level your E, but I did not. So here, as you guys can see, I'm getting destroyed by the Wukong. I smite for health, and I'm gonna try to I flash away. Now the reason here is that actually technically, I'm gonna cover this later, but we're just gonna see here first. If you guys want to rewind by a little bit, you will actually see that going for this skull was not actually a mistake by me, despite not leveling my E. The mistake I made was not leveling my E, but the mistake was not going for the skull, because if you guys actually took a look at the lane state, which is something you always want to look out for when going for the skull, both my mid and my bot lane had priority. So Kennen was actually pushing the Darius in, and Twisted Fate was actually pushing the Orianna in. So technically it was not a mistake, because they could have actually gotten to the fight earlier than their counterparts. But the problem here is that they both didn't rotate at all. Twisted Fate did rotate eventually, but he had no mana, and all he did was stun the Skull Crab instead of stunning the Wukong, so he basically contributed absolutely nothing. So here I go for the opposite skull because Wukong died as well, so I will be on the map before him. I have more tempo, so I can secure the skull, and then I go for a pretty standard jungle clear where you invade the enemy Krugs. So here I'm just going to take the enemy Krugs, and at the same time I'm in prime position to gank the enemy bot lane as well. Now they do probably know that I'm here, because they did probably see me when I swept and I walked up a little bit into the lane. But here I'm just taking the skull. Here I actually have a golden opportunity to just jump onto the Yasuo, but unfortunately I'm stuck in my evolution animation, and by the time the minions come, it's too late. Everybody has rotated. I've missed my opportunity, so I don't want to go in at this point in time. So now Wukong is also going to be hitting up here. There he is. Gets off his ultimate onto multiple targets. I have to jump away, and I'm just getting off whatever damage I can. Wukong actually isolates himself, so I do actually get off an isolated Q on him, and here Twisted Fate flash blue cards for the kill. Blue card does do the most damage, so that was actually well played by the Twisted Fate, choosing the blue card there. Not sure if that was just a panic press or that was a calculated move, but either ways we do get the kill on the Wukong, so we're just going to go back to farming our jungle. Now Kha'Zix at early levels is not really the strongest jungler, but at the same time he's not the weakest. He just needs to find isolated targets to actually, do some damage. But the Kha'Zix recent nerf, repeated nerf on his Q, as well as the nerf to his sustain, did actually I wouldn't say it hurt him a lot, but I would say that I can feel the difference. I do feel a lot less healthy in the jungle, you know, with the health regen nerf as well. So here I swept out the dragon pit already, and now I'm just going to recall and reset. Now I have actually seen the enemies going for the dragons. I'm going to actually try to rush over as soon as possible. However, as I am rushing towards the dragon, you guys can see my rune, I'm rushing towards the dragon. I actually pan my camera over and realized that there's no way I'm going to make it there in time, so I'm actually redirecting to go for the Rift Herald instead. And now here I make yet another mistake. Now the mistake that I make here is actually jumping over, because when I jump over I actually damage the Rift Herald and causes the Rift Herald to charge into the wall. Now the problem with the Rift Herald being in the wall is that I can't actually hit the eye of the Rift Herald. So here Rift Herald actually turns and Kennen manages to get a hit on the eye, but we need to drag out the Rift Herald a little bit, which is actually a mistake. Here Darius actually comes in alone, so he is isolated, so we do actually manage to get the kill on him, but I return and Rift Herald bonks me on the head for a very embarrassing death. You know, and as a result, Wukong is already in the area, so now I basically just given the enemy a free leash on the Rift Herald. We can't actually see the health, but clearly the enemy team has gotten a free Rift Herald, courtesy of me kind of misplaying there and getting bonked by the Rift Herald for the kill onto the Darius. What I could have done instead is just sort of back away, and at least I would have a chance to jump in and smite the Rift Herald, possibly to secure the Rift Herald, but instead I made a boo-boo of it and got killed by the Rift Herald slash. So here I'm just gonna continue to farm my jungle. Haven't really had any successful ganks this game as of yet, and I've done a lot of dying. I'm 1-2 and 2. Not the worst score in the world. We still have got a couple of assists. We did make some impact on the map. And our team only has 4 kills. So our team in general is just doing bad. So here I'm gonna finally come in for a gank on the Darius. Of course, gonna sweep the area so he doesn't actually see me coming. Don't bother to clear the ward. It's just so that he doesn't see me coming. Here, get off an isolated Q on him. Stun him with my Red Smite just for more damage. And then I'm going to just barely kill him, and I barely get out by the skin of my teeth as his passive nearly kills me, and I can actually just back to get health as well. Now, a good thing to note is I do have my Dust Blade, so I do actually do quite a bit of damage at this point in time. So with the first item Power Spike, I do actually, you know, I can actually put in some work at the moment. Now, Wukong, he's going for a Triforce, and Nick's appears to be going for a Black Cleaver, so he's going for a very, very offensive build. This is not a tank or a hybrid Wukong, this is just a damage Wukong. Although he's not going for Assassin or Lethality, he's kind of going for more of a fighter build. Now, as Twisted Fate actually ults in for the double kill, I'm actually just going to clear off the Rift Herald so it doesn't get another charge off. And then I'm just going to proceed on to clear my blue side jungle. Like so, just quickly doing the blue buff. You know, Kha'Zix generally clears very, very quickly because a lot of jungle monsters like the blue and the grump are isolated, so you can actually clear very, very quickly. So we will actually be farming a lot of the jungle as a Kha'Zix. Unlike some other junglers, and let's say Nunu, you will be ganking a lot and you don't have a lot of time to farm because your clear is very slow. But Kha'Zix actually clears very fast. So here, as you can see, I clear the blue side jungle very, very quickly, and nothing is really happening on the map. Here I'm getting my second evolution, and seeing as how a lot of times the team is together, I actually evolve my W. Here I spot and isolate Orianna. I just basically use everything on her, but she unfortunately has stasis, which is very unlucky for me, and her team comes in to help her, and now I'm going to have to hightail it away. So here Janna comes in for the exhaust on the Yasuo, and I try to finish him off with my isolated Q. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen, but Kai'Sa can finish off the kill here. But Janna finds herself in no man's land, and Kai'Sa is hightailing it out of the way. So we trade more or less of 3 for 3, kind of, so it's not the worst in the world. In the meantime, Kennen is getting off a split push and getting getting the bot lane tower, so it's not the worst in the world. Now, of course, we can see that at this point in time, from going from 410, now we're at like 12, 15, and our goal deficit is 4k. Now, 4k is nothing to be scoffed at, but at the same time, it's not the worst in the world. So 4k is an alright kind of goal deficit. It's not, you're not completely getting destroyed as of yet, but definitely make no mistake about it, our team is losing. So here, next dragon is up. I'm just gonna hit whoever I can. So Darius is here, so I'm just gonna get him since he's relatively isolated. Just get rid of him. In the meantime, my team actually finishes off the other two members who are actually doing the dragon. So here this actually allows us to quickly burst down the dragon and secure it before Wukong shows up to the party to sort of try to contest here. Orianna is isolated. I'm just gonna jump in and full combo her. Kaisa with the Void Seeker to actually kind of do a KS on me, but doesn't really matter. It's good to actually give kills to the AD carry. So Kaisa 4, 2, and 5 doing the best on our team at the moment, so I don't really mind that too much. Now here, with the majority of the enemy team dead, I'm actually just going to head into the enemy jungle, see if there's anything to take. The blue buff is not up, but the Grump is up. Now here I'm just sweeping to check that I'm not on any vision, that they can't actually see me and all just collapse on me. I am actually not being spotted, so I'm just going to take the Grump and then just head on out, taking the fruit along the way. Why not? And then I have my entire red side up, so I can actually just proceed on to clear my red side. Like so, of course I prioritize the buff, so I'm gonna go for the buff first. And yeah, clearing very fast. Nothing too much happening on the map at the moment, so we're simply just going to farm up the jungle. Here, evolved spikes into all of the small minions, so we can clear them very quickly. Clearing at this point in time, you don't on your first clear is the only time you really have to prioritize killing the small ones before the big one. When you get to this stage of the game, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna clear it very fast anyway, so it isn't too important. Now here, obviously, my team is in a fight, and I'm gonna try to rush over, see if I can do any cleanup. But when I reach, pretty much the fight is. I wouldn't say it's over, but here I actually try to burst on the Wukong, but the Wukong actually does just destroy me. So clearly poor target priority on my part. My general idea was just to remove the Wukong from the equation, then I can move on to the Senna and the Yasuo. But clearly I should have just targeted the Senna instead of the Wukong, who were next stage. I had the free choice of who I wanted to target. I just chose to go for the Wukong. But clearly that was not the best idea. I should have just gone for the Senna instead, or just jump to the backline and get the Yasuo instead. But it didn't really work out that way. So instead I just die for it. So not too much to say there. But here on out, I believe from here on out we are going to be playing pretty well. We're going to find a lot of picks on Kha'Zix, and Kha'Zix honestly in the early game is easier to play than the mid and late game. But I've managed to make I managed to bumble and stumble my way through the early game, and I find myself in the mid and late game, which is the harder part of to play Kha'Zix. Here I nearly get destroyed, but somehow with the help of Janna's E as well as the Mountain Dragon Shield, I actually survived by the skin of my teeth. Darius is on the chase, but I barely managed to actually escape with a sliver of HP. So the mid and late game for Kha'Zix is a lot harder to play because when teams group up, it's very hard to find isolated targets. So what you want to do as a mid and late game Kha'Zix is to find picks. And you will see I play very well as a Kha'Zix finding picks. So here, the enemy team has just tried to, aggress onto us, but none of us actually die, and they're all on the retreat. Here, Yasuo actually overstays by actually going for our Crux. So here I find a golden opportunity to find a pick on the Yasuo. I jump in on him, isolate Q, W, Q again, auto, and he is gone. As you guys can see, Kha'Zix has an amazing burst. At this point, I have my Serelda's Grudge and as well as my Dust Blade, so I am going to be doing quite a bit of damage. Here, sort of a mini fight breaks out. I accidentally Q the Wukong clone. I jump out of the way. Here Wukong goes, not Wukong, Cannon goes in with his ultimate. Senna is alone. I actually slow her with a combination of Serelda's Grudge as well as my W. And here actually I nearly die, but the Orianna ultimate actually helps to reposition me further away from the fight, which technically does actually save me from dying. Probably I would have died if I stayed at the position that I was. So Orianna actually inadvertently helps me escape. Now we just back off, get health, pick up a Dirk. Why not? So this game I actually have chosen to pick up armor boots just because the entire enemy team is physical damage instead of except for the Orianna. But probably I would think that the Ionian boots is probably still better this game. It didn't really help me all that much. Here I've been spotted, but I see the Yasuo isolated, so I do want to jump in and get a pick on the Yasuo. I jump in, I find that the Darius is actually in the area, so unfortunately I don't manage to kill the Yasuo, but I do manage to chunk him to about half health, which is a positive outcome for my team. So here I'm just going to pick up the blue buff in the downtime. I don't really just want to start off the dragon just with the entire team in the area. So here, Twist of Fate ults to check entire enemy team. Yasuo is alone, so I do actually manage to finish him off. Twisted Fate's gold card gets Windwalled, so it doesn't, nothing really comes of it. Here, Wukong is actually going for me, not the worst decision, because I wouldn't. If he kills me, my team won't have Smite for the Infernal Dragon, and Wukong unfortunately does die off as well. So we trade jungler for jungler, so if both teams go for the objective, it's going to be a 50-50. But the enemy team is, pushing onto us again. Kaisa here manages to pick up the kill onto the Darius, and here she's up against a Orianna and a Senna, who are both pretty squishy. So here, Kaisa actually does manage to get off a huge Q onto Orianna and alt autos to kill the Orianna. Now on a one-on-one versus the Senna, and Senna manages to escape by the skin of her teeth. But our team is all up other than me, and we are actually closing the gap between the enemy team. Now it's only a 2k difference between the two teams, so it's not really that huge. They clear out the enemy vision before going for the Infernal Dragon. Now something to take note is that Wukong has already respawned, so he might actually just rush to the dragon to smite it, but fortunately my team does clear the dragon very quickly, so I don't actually have to just show up for the smite. Instead, since I'm already in the area, might as well just clear my Gromp since it is up. Might as well just clear the wolves as well since it is up as well. As I said, Kha'Zix clears very fast. Actually, we're not clearing the wolves because we see a fight possibly breaking out in mid lane, so we want to actually shadow for the Kaisa, because Kaisa at this point of time is the most valuable member of our team, so we want to try to make sure she doesn't really die. So here Darius is coming in. He is actually isolated, so we're actually going to turn on him because our Janna is in the area, but unfortunately the rest of the enemy team shows up. I'm going to have to jump out, getting isolated Q onto the Darius. Again, Darius tries to ult for the kill, but I don't actually die. Janna actually does get the shield on me. Here, instead of backing, I actually do think there's a decent chance that my team is going to continue a extended fight. So here I'm actually just going to kill Red Buff and smite it as well to just get the health back from killing jungle monsters, the smite as well as my W. So I'm back to about half health, but unfortunately my entire team gets wiped before I can rejoin the fight. So of course I don't want to go in 1v2, 1v3, so I'm just going to back. Now, I'm the only person left alive on my team, so I do know the enemy team is going for a Baron, so I have two choices here. I can go for the safe play, which is to back and to reset, get myself the Yomu's Ghostblade, which is exactly what I do, and concede the Baron. My other alternative is to hit straight on over to the Baron and try to steal it. Now, the reason I don't go for the risky play is because despite being the jungler having a smite, I actually don't have any vision of the Baron Pit, and I do have a sweeper instead of a warding trinket, so I can't actually get a sweeper into the Baron Pit, so I can't see a thing. So jumping in when it's 50-50 is already, as I said, a 50-50 chance, but jumping in blind is just gonna be like a super duper low chance of actually stealing the Baron. If it did happen, it would be amazing, but it's just way too risky. It's not worth it. If I die there, it's not gonna be the best in the world, so I don't actually do that. Instead, I go for the safer play of just resetting and just going for it. Now here the entire enemy team actually just tries to force down mid. Now they are all in the top side jungle. As you can see the Darius, the Yasuo, and the Orianna on vision. There you can see Orianna and Wukong now. Now they are actually splitting up now, which is the way better play. But Kaisa at this point is really strong. She has her 3-item power spike, so we want to be keeping her alive so she can just DPS as much as possible. Here we're just biding our time, seeing what we can do. Now, the enemy team actually makes a mistake. Orianna is split up from her team, so I actually do recognize that I'm coming in on the Orianna. Orianna actually does Zhonya's, and I don't actually get the kill on the Orianna. So here I Zhonya's as well, just so I don't get bursted by the enemy team. Now here, I get pulled by Darius, but I see Wukong isolated, so I get easy jump Q onto the Wukong. Now Wukong does have his ult, so I'm going to get hit by his ult, but here I can't actually try to kill the Wukong. We actually exchange kills, auto-attacking each other at the same time, so we both die, jungler for jungler again. And here it's a 2v2 with Janna and Kaisa versus Darius and Senna. Now thankfully our Kaisa is fed, so she can actually just clean up the fight for our team. And at the end of the day, it's a 4-for-5 trade in favor of our team, so we do actually have it relatively even now. So now at this point in time, the game is still very even. Technically, we won this fight. First off, because we did have a member left up, but secondly because the enemy team had Baron buff, so we removed the Baron buff of the entire enemy team, which is great news for us. Now here Kaisa is just pushing top because obviously the entire enemy team is dead. We can get a free tower, but now the Elder Dragon is coming up, which is going to be the next major objective that both teams are fighting over. So as a Kha'Zix, obviously what you are looking for is you're looking to make a pick onto the enemy team before the entire fight ensues, which is very challenging because if the enemy team is playing well and they're into a Kha'Zix, you wouldn't be isolated, you wouldn't be alone. But here, I'm not gonna go straight for the dragon. Of course, I'm just gonna secure the skull crab here so we get some vision. Here, Orianna makes a huge mistake. She's isolated, Twisted Fate flash, gold card. I jump in and I destroy her. So here we have already made a pick. Wukong jumps in and tries to save her, so Wukong dies as well. So at this point in time, we have already gotten two important members of the enemy team, the jungler and the mid laner. We're just gonna clean up the fight. Here I'm just hovering around and just doing damage to whoever I can because I'm very, very low, so I don't want to be jumping in. I'm just queuing whoever I can. At this point, only Senna and Darius are left alive. We have all 5 members left alive. I take the plant. I'm gonna go for the Elder Dragon. Of course, we burst it very, very quickly with our Mastermind and our isolated Q damage onto the dragon. They, of course, have no chance to steal it here because I have my smite. I smite the dragon. And here I'm gonna jump over because I see Senna isolated. Darius actually sabotages his own Senna by blast planting over, which guarantees she's isolated because if he was there, he could at least have stood next to the Senna so she wasn't isolated. But since he blast planted over at the same time that I jumped over, he was doomed. So the entire enemy team is down. The Orianna and the Wukong is just respawning, so they can't really contest this very, very easily. Of course, they could Wukong ult in with the Orianna ult as well, but they do take time to walk over, and Orianna clearly is trying to clear the minion wave at the bot lane. So here we get both the Elder Dragon as well as the Baron, and this is where the game flips on its head because now for the first time in the game, my team actually has a gold advantage, and with that we can try to attempt to close out the game. We have actually triple dragon, we have all of them except for Cloud Dragon, and we have the Baron, so we have a very, very strong chance of trying to close out the game. Me and Kaisa have both bought GA as well, so both of us are going to have a free revive as well, so it's going to be really, really strong. Our team is really strong at this point in time, so we're going to actually just try to close out the game here. We are all just forcing down mid. Of course, I'm going to flank, get into a flanking position. I see Yasuo, I see a glimpse of Yasuo in the bot lane, so I'm going to try to cut him off. Here, I spot him. He does get the knock up on me. He doesn't choose to ult though. But I jump on him and I destroy him. I flash Q him for the pick on the Yasuo. Yasuo is already gone. Kha'Zix, as I said, when you play in the mid and late game, you want to just find picks. Here, another pick onto the Orianna, just Goomba stomping on her head, and there she goes. And Wukong, not much he can do here. He's the last member of his team left alive. All he can do is watch as his castle crumbles before him, and this brings us to the comeback victory on Kha'Zix. A jungler at my 4th picked position, and here we go. I even managed to actually pick up an A on the Kha'Zix, as you guys will see in a few seconds. But with that out of the way, as usual, I'll leave you guys with the stats. So thank you guys for watching the video, and goodbye.